Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. Imagine all the people living life in peace. Woo-hoo.
Hello, and welcome to Conversations with SOTU. My name's Josh Schwartzbeck.
And I'm Adrienne Metcalf this week. This week we're also joined by local author Steve Schatz. You can find more about Steve and his writing at stevewrites.com. Josh is a professional channel, and he channels a consciousness we call SOTU. And Steve has very graciously offered to interview SOTU. So this is where we're going today. Question what we say here today. Decide for yourself whether it becomes part of your truth. Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Josh.
We'll see. Right.
And here
Ready
we
to
go.
go?
Here we go.
All right. Well. Welcome, everyone. Oh, we're over here. We are SOTU, and this is Conversations with SOTU, and it is sometime in May of 2017. We believe it's the 22nd.
It is the
Yes.
22nd.
Although that is perhaps not completely appropriate for the times. We'll find out today. We are here to speak to you about the dynamics that are occurring in your world and perhaps make a connection that you have not all seen all that much. And so hopefully we can share some light and share some insight into this world that you are living in. And so Mr. Schatz has, Dr. Schatz, excuse us, has had 2 weeks to prepare for this, so we're expecting some humdingers. All right, Stephen, how's that for putting you on the spot?
Oh, great spot. Great spot to be put. I don't want to, well, I do want to start off with a downer, and so we will.
All right, well, but see, then we can end on an up note.
That's right, that's right.
No problem.
There hasn't been a big die-off in population
For a while.
for quite some time. I mean, the last.
Of course, if you lived in Syria or if you lived in Yemen, you might not say that.
Percentage-wise, for the world population, I mean, we have 7.5 billion roughly people around, and the last really multi-million die-off was really World War II.
And
There's been a little,
there's
been a few little couple of million here and there. Are we due for one?
Well, you know,
Neither by war nor sickness has that happened.
First of all, you have to understand that when you talk of a die-off, we would think that there is a dynamic of where the population would decrease worldwide. And what we would say that, in fact, there are some areas where population decreases markedly and other places not so much. If you look at the dynamics of what is going on in the Middle East right now, many people in the Middle East would say that this is a nightmare situation and there are so many people dying and all. But then you come back here to the United States and people are oblivious to that dynamic. So, in fact, no one lives or dies per chance, and the question ultimately is, because we cannot really, we would not deprive you of the adventure of discovery here, because the discovery is really around the understanding of human nature. We have often said no one lives or dies by accident. Well, and when a large group of people leaves all at the same time, i.e. like Banda Aceh, the tsunami that occurred in '06, we believe it was, something
Somewhere
like
around
that.
there.
We're not great with time. They were saying something. They were saying something about the clash of civilizations. 9/11. 9/11 was saying something when all those people left at the same time. It was your reality was asking you a question. So ultimately, there are those in your world that would wish you to all just leave. You know, there are those in your world. We think it was Mr. Kissinger that called you, many of you, useless eaters. And so, you know, there are those in your world that would say, now, if you're talking about the dynamic of resources, you produce enough food on a daily basis to feed 9 billion people. 9 billion people. Now, so why are people going hungry? Why are people are starving? Because food is a commodity, not a right. So are you due for a die-off? Well, not really in that sense. And in fact, there's a certain, we would suggest to you that there is a theory that exists in your world that basically says that when you reach a population of 8 billion people, that there is an increase in mass awareness, mass consciousness. And so that, in conjunction with all of the external dynamics that are pressuring you all to be more, in fact, the result is going to be what you choose it to be.
Okay.
We would say at this point, the way things look, it is unlikely there will be a nuclear war. There's unlikely that there will be World War III. And we would suggest to you that any massive die-off is going to be as a result of collapsing financial structures and the systems that are attached to that. Okay. That is the most likely at this point.
Okay. There does seem to be a larger disparity between countries, where many countries are worried about clean water versus the civilized world having the latest smartphone.
Correct.
I mean, there's a really big difference.
Yeah.
What do you see happening because of that? That seems like worlds out of kilter.
Yeah, in fact, it's going to be technology that's going to save you. But it's going to be a dynamic that's a heartfelt technology. You know, they talk about a dynamic that artificial intelligence is coming in now to take over jobs and all of that stuff. But what if it was heart-centered technology? And so you would engage people in the dynamics of the technology in order to be able to create more, create better, create anything you would wish almost. And so if you can step beyond the limitations of thinking, the limitations of paradigm, almost anything is possible. So we would say that in fact it will be technology that saves you, not is your end. And there is this normal dynamic, you know, when you all begin to believe that there is enough and you all begin to believe that you're enough, then the pressure is off. You know, we've talked about the dynamic with the Peace Genesis Project, that peace begins with enough for all. Food, water, shelter, healthcare, and education. If you all had that basic platform to start with, who knows what you could create. And we don't go into any sort of projection on that because that's up to you as a species. What are you going to create? Can you imagine what your life would have been like if you had no struggle? If you did not have to struggle. Now some say, oh, we have to have competition in order to move forward. Well, we would say that's completely unproven because that's all you've been doing. You haven't tried anything else. Fair enough?
Very good. Okay, going from the macro to the micro. does suicide matter? Does one person deciding to leave make a difference?
It makes a difference to those that love him or her. But again, it is that dynamic. Do you want to know in the karmic sense? Do you want to know in the physical sense?
I want to know in the karmic sense.
In a karmic sense, it can be very negative in that sort of way. If the person is committing suicide as a manipulation, I'll show you. Well, but there's a great deal of that goes on in your world. There's a great if your person is doing it to escape pain or to get out of a terminal there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with choosing to leave in a situation like that. Right? However, again, we say if you're using it as a manipulation, forget it. You're going to have a very big karmic debt to pay.
Does a life matter where it is? Being here, being there. The channel, Josh, happens to be in Western
Massachusetts, yeah.
Would it be different if Josh were in Montana?
Probably not, because your path is your path. And those that you have, it's not like it's written in stone, but the outline is pretty well set for you. There's choice within the path that you have chosen, but it's still going to be the path that you have chosen in between lifetimes. Oh, if you remembered it in in this incarnation early on, then what would the fun be? Because part of the dynamic of the journey is to be able to have the experiences. Now, in your world, you have chosen to have mostly negative experiences, many of you. That's a choice. You do realize that, right? That's a choice. You can choose to be not simply more positive, because just going to light shadow, just going to the positive doesn't work, but being more realistic and operating within the parameters of this paradigm that exists along a linear timeline, all right, where one moment seems to follow the next. Right? You have to operate within that paradigm. You can wish to be free of it, but then you might have to do what you just suggested, which was suicide.
So if someone's sitting out there saying, this sucks, I should move to Timbuktu.
Okay.
Should they give it a try?
One should look within and begin to be able to trust oneself. And one should begin to understand that you, if we're talking to you, are on an incremental journey. All right, it's a step-by-step journey. Usually in a situation like that, you would try to find your way. What's the reflection of my reality saying? What's my heart saying? Do I really wish to move, or am I doing it because someone else wishes to move? Do I really like it where I am? Do I really enjoy this place? Is this what I really wish to make my home, or do I wish to keep looking? Some people have no need for roots like that, and other people need it desperately. You are all individuals, so it's very hard to paint with a broad brush in that sort of way.
Okay.
Oh,
we're just going.
You're just going to go for it, eh?
I am. What's the purpose of religion?
To distract you. Well, the problem is, let's talk a little bit about religion. What is religion? Religion is a set of beliefs. All right? You realize that all religion stems from oral tradition. That before there was writing, the concept of the divine, the concept of God got us all that is, the concept of life, the things that you learned. You basically learned around the fire at night from the shaman, from the wise people in your tribe, from the elders, from, operating within the dynamics of nature during the day. All of it. It's... Adrian, you have something that you wish to add?
No, it's that oral tradition that thereby shifts and grows.
With every succeeding generation. So in the dynamics of as the species grew, so did your concept of the divine. Until something happened. Somebody taught you to write. All right? Now, as soon as you begin to write, now you're getting involved in putting these things down, this thing that was intended to be flexible, that was intended to grow as your concept, as your idea of the divine and your place in the world grew. Instead, it is now written. And what was the first thing that humanity used to write on?
Wood.
Stone.
Stone.
Stone. Written in stone. That is what religion is. Written in stone. And when it's written in stone, it becomes dogma. And it doesn't grow any longer.
So you would say that a religion should be...
We would say that you have a 7,000-year-old, at least a 7,000-year-old idea of the divine that has not moved and grown since that time.
Which is problematic.
Which could be problematic. We will not make judgments. But we are just saying that if you're looking at what the purpose of religion was, it is to be able to, it was originally an oral tradition that was intended to have you understand your place in nature, your place with each other, and your place with the divine. It's only, and so, you look back at the Bible, and you look back at some of the written texts, and the things that are important are the metaphors that are spoken of. And so interpretation of the metaphors, you can gain a tremendous amount more than trying to understand the specificity of what is written. Adrian?
Because the metaphors speak about the underlying energetic dynamic.
No, it speaks to the underlying energetic truth.
Truth.
That's another thing. We just saw National Geographic on the way over here, and they're talking about how easy it is for humanity to lie. So we'll get into that in another show.
What's your concept of the divine?
All that is. And all that isn't.
Okay. Are we going somewhere? Are we?
Yeah, you are.
As a species, as
well, that remains to be seen, doesn't it? Are you going somewhere? Yeah, you're going somewhere. You're either going toward enlightenment or extinction, one or the other. Again, why would we deprive you of the adventure of discovery? Well, but dear ones, you're the ones that have to make this choice. We can give you the information. We can share our viewpoint on things. We can have you begin to perhaps understand from your own concepts of what the divine is, your own, what shall we say, coming from the dynamic of your own consciousness, your own awareness. If you can begin to understand some of these things and understand that if, the great gurus, they say, oh, well, you created all. Well, how do I create it all? And we go, oh, you created through your thought, your word, and your feeling. What does that mean? Well, in fact, it means that ultimately you're responsible for it all, but you are not expected to know what that means after having been through almost countless generations that has not taught you what the function of humanity is in the whole scheme of things. You think that you are here to dominate, you think that you're here for dominion, but that's not real. You're here to, again, we go back to a little biblical metaphor here. You're created in the image of God. Well, what does that mean? That doesn't mean that you look like God. That basically means that you have all the creative ability, you have all of the manifestation power of God, Goddess, all that is, of the divine. We like the word divine better, but, all right?
So what's enlightenment like? Is it like a switch?
It's lonely. It's lonely, we wish to tell you.
I mean, does it one day it's like you sat on a poker and you go, oh, I'm enlightened, and then you can poof things into existence?
No, it's more like you find that dynamic of peace within yourself. It goes from you exist on a linear timeline, all right? And most of you, your consciousness, your awareness is in that dynamic of that linear timeline. As you begin to reach stages of enlightenment, you move from that linear timeline to the ability, from that linear timeline to the ability to see the truth of a paradox, what shall we say, the realness of possibilities, right? You begin to see the truth and the lies in both ends of the paradigm. Let's just take easily, for example, do not take us too seriously here, Republicans and Democrats, all right? Because that's just an easy paradigm. They are two ends of a spectrum, two ends of a paradox, all right? One generally contains live and let live people, and the other contains people that need to feel they have to control situations. All right? Live and let live people willing to give up their power left and right. All right? Those that seek to control are unwilling to give up their power. So it works really well in that dynamic. However, if you look at it, there's truth and lies on the left. And if you understand the truth and the lies on the left, then you look to the right and you say, there's truth and lies on the right. If you can see both ends of that paradox at the same time, you begin to rise above to a third position. In other words, you begin to move out of the linear and into the quantum, which changes your whole viewpoint on the world, changes your whole understanding of how things work. And then from that place of objectivity, because that's what it is, it's a place of objectivity, you then move to a place, you then can move to a place of mastery. And it is at that point of mastery that you can achieve the dynamic of instant manifestation.
Okay.
Well, that's got you all thinking. And you all have that ability. Yes, Adrienne?
Well, if we find ourselves in a truly polarized position, then the goal is to find that other polarized position.
Right. No, you think that in a situation like that, you have to compromise. Right? That you just got to move that in that linear timeline, you got to move somewhere to the middle. Well, but that doesn't address the truth and the lies in both ends of the paradox. And if you get to that place of truth and truth, then that completes the dynamic of the energy of the triangle, of the pyramid, and moves the dynamic to that third position where you're standing above looking at the whole dynamic. Wow. All right. One more question for
One
this
more question. Why bother? What good is this race? Why are we here?
To grow, to learn, to find that motivation within you.
Just because? Because why not?
Just because we think you're so pretty. Why does one have? Do you like life?
It seems fine to me.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to really compare it to.
Sure you do. Sure you do. Sure you do. You all do. You all know in your hearts who you really are. All you have to do is, what shall we say, shed yourself of so many of the lies that you are being told and that you're telling yourselves. And perhaps we'll get into that in the second half of the show, which will be coming up pretty shortly. We are SOTU, and this has been Conversations with SOTU, the interviews, part 3. We do thank Stephen for his poignant questions, and hopefully in the next segment, the next 27 minutes, we'll have a little more. We love you all so very, very much, and so until next time, for some of you next week, we close, sending you peace, sending you happiness, sending you joy.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Steve.
My
you
pleasure.
play well with others. This is fun. Thank you, Josh. And thank you for watching again. Send us questions or comments. You may do that through the television station or certainly through our website, conversationswithsotu.org, on the contact page. We'd love to have your feedback. So until the next time, we say thank you.
You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday